this tent, you know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another edition of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the longest running Luton Town podcast and the only one that's gone from League 2 to the Premier League. I'm Kev, your host as always, and we've got the full gang this week. We've got Trust Chairman Tony Murray.
Evening.
The Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. He threw me then with evening. If you're watching this in the morning, then ignore Tony. You're more than welcome to listen to any time. And town fan Dan Barrett Davis.
Hello.
Dan, I'll start with you. It's your first time on set.
Yep.
What do you make of it all?
That light's very bright.
It is. It needs to be.
Yeah, I should have bought my sunglasses. No, it's very nice. It is very nice, and everyone's pulling a lot of work together to get it together. So, well done to the Trust for that.
Do you like our new logo tablecloth thing?
I love it. I want one for my house.
Yep. Set developing all the time, as indeed are all of our video podcasts. Thanks to everyone who listened to or watched, the first podcasts that we did last week. They will keep on improving. Bear with us just for the first sort of 2 or 3 weeks. Just a few teething problems, but we'll get them sorted out and we'll be all good to go. Okay, you're listening or watching the Chelsea Review podcast, and I'll go to you first, Tony. Before we come on to the game itself, atmosphere in the Luton end on Friday night was something else.
Oh, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I am so proud of my fellow Hearts for that Friday night. Right from the word go, and even after the final whistle, when the players come over, that was so special. And, to see a couple of former Luton players in the crowd cheering us on and singing and joining in the songs as well was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it was indeed. Don't think Glenn Ray's technically a former Luton Town player, but obviously I think the writing is generally on the wall, given that he's not got a squad number. But good to see Glenn in the stands. Good to see Cameron McGeehan in the stands as well, and great to see former players in with us. Dan, first away game of the season. Enjoy the atmosphere.
I did from our supporters, yeah, because there wasn't one in the home end at all, was there?
No, there wasn't. Long way to bring atmosphere from America and Japan and China and here, there and everywhere else, to be fair.
I suppose they're all jet lagged. But to be honest, the only time you heard them was when they scored and when they made a substitution, and that was pretty much it. It was quite disappointing for a Premier League club. You'd think they'd have more of a voice, if you like. Okay, they had a very bad season by their standards last season, but I think we proved with what Tony said about our supporters at the end of the game, during the game, just singing all the way through.
I'll tell you what, Dan, I don't think I've ever seen so many half and half scarves at one game. It was just...
We've not put the one that Tony brought up behind us for this set.
Oh, that's different. That's Italia.
If anyone wants a Luton West Ham scarf on Friday, come and see Tony. He's got plenty of them in the back of his van.
I wish.
He's your man.
20 quid.
James, you weren't able to be at Stamford Bridge on Friday night, but you've seen the videos, particularly post-game. I mean, the ovation that the players got was incredible, really. And I think Rob Edwards was standing there almost in disbelief for a good 2 minutes, really. And you could tell there's a fair bit of emotion going on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it. I wasn't surprised by it, to be honest. I hoped that would be the reaction, because that's the way the club's been going for such a long time now. And but at the back of my mind, I was also thinking it wasn't that long ago that there were sections of the crowd that actually turned in on John Steele before this period happened, in League 2. So it can go either way if the results ain't going your way. It's just that, for 9 years or so, the results have gone absolutely fantastic. But I'm so delighted that was the reaction, and that should be the banker now for the rest of the season. That's the one to live up to. But it was going that sort of way after Watford and then Sunderland last season, and we were all calling for it. If we got into the Premier League at the time, we were saying it's got to be like that. Now we are. It's got to stay like that.
I I think one of the reasons why the reaction was like it was, Tony, is although the scoreline doesn't necessarily reflect it, I thought the performance of the players on the pitch was even better than it was against Brighton. I thought we gave Chelsea a lot more of a game, and ultimately it's just one of England's finest from the last 10 years that undid us, really.
Yeah, it was a good performance, I thought, from us, to be honest with you. You could see the players were putting the effort in and they were trying, and you know, there were certain players that weren't on top of their game during the match, but they were all trying, which was the main thing, and that's all you can ask from them. You know, Chelsea's quality in the end told, you know, and Raheem Sterling chose that night to get back to his international form, didn't he? And unfortunately against us, but it you know, the whole support thing, getting behind them and everything, has just amazed me, you know, and it's going to give the players a lift. We're being that 12th man at the moment that the team need. And it was, you know, never mind the players and Rob Edwards. Did you see the look on the faces of the Chelsea followers? I won't say supporters, I'll say followers. They were looking at us and they were amazed that we I don't think anybody left. We all stayed there and cheered them on and come over and I've never seen anything like that. You know, normally at an away game, the players will come over and you'll clap them or whatever, but to sing like that and nobody move. And there were, I see on a few message boards and whatever, Chelsea were saying, well, were we locked in or whatever? No, we were free to go whenever we wanted to, but we chose to stay and show our appreciation to the lads for their effort. And, you know, as long as we can keep that going, we've got a chance. You know, nobody in reality expected us to get anything from these opening games. If we'd have got a point, it would have been a bonus. But the real thing starts now.
Yeah, that's true. Dan, obviously, they had a midfielder that cost 4 times as much as we've spent in the last 30 years, as that caption that's done the rounds from Sky Sports highlighted. But ultimately, it was just one Englishman that undone us. I think if you took Raheem Sterling out of the game, maybe it's not an even game, but it's a much closer game.
Yeah, definitely. And then, like Tony said, you know, Sterling showed what we've seen out of him in the last sort of 10, 12 years, playing for England, Liverpool, City and the likes. And that literally was the difference. And when you've got players in there that were playing League Two football not so long ago, stepping up and facing the likes of Sterling, you know, it's credit to us really for going up there and having a go, I think. You know, and yeah, you're probably right. He was involved in all 3 goals. He scored the 2 and made the 3rd. And yeah, you know, he kept knocking, and I felt for the 90, apart from those couple of occasions, which unfortunately that the result rides on those occasions. But all game he was at us, and I felt that we held him for most of the game. It was just, and that's the difference when you've got a world class player like Sterling. He can just unturn you and that's ultimately what happened. But I did think we dealt with him quite well, considering the supposed difference in stature. Thank you, Sky Sports.
Yeah, well, I mean, James, to be fair, the caption actually said that since Luton and Chelsea last played in the top flight against each other, Chelsea have spent £3 billion to Luton's 30 million. And if ever you want to know what we came up against, certainly on Friday night and also in the first game, that's it.
Well, exactly. And you know, money talks in this league a lot. We hope it doesn't talk to the extent that Luton, being on the lowest budget, will finish at the bottom. I didn't see that. I think that everybody saw enough from that, and everybody's thought about it since. And you've had Carlton Morris come out say this team will get results. So I don't think that will happen. But that's what you are up against in the top echelon in the league, isn't it? Because you know, they're a big money club, and they have been since Abramovich come in. I mean, they were up and down before that, and a cup team as far as my youth was concerned.
Yeah,
and we spoke about that in the preview podcast. But ever since that money's come in, they've expected to be up there. They've won everything you can possibly win, and you know, if they can splash the amount of money it's going to cost to build Power Court on 2 midfielders in a week, however however much you think that shouldn't be allowed, perhaps, and I think that serious questions and loopholes need to be asked and closed, then until they are, they're free to do that, and that's the sort of thing that we're going to come up against. And there's some worse teams in the league as well that we're going to come up against for that sort of stuff, because while they're owned by an American businessman now, there's other teams in this league that are owned by nation states, and that's another debate for another for another day.
That one's for a
But
monthly
I'm happy
podcast.
to have that.
That one.
I don't know. Looking at their support on Friday night, it was like the United Nations there anyway, weren't they? They were sitting there like they had their hands stapled to their legs or something. No cheering, no clap. The only time they made any noise was when they scored.
Yeah, which
And unfortunately they did.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, they did that.
The
3
other
times.
thing as well, how loud was that sound system there? It was overkill, wasn't it?
That's the Premier League for you, my friend.
God.
I wonder if that's part of the improvement
Yeah, I was
process
gonna
at Kenilworth
say,
Road. A few new cables.
None of the stuttering PA
cut the
systems
speakers.
at Kenilworth
God.
Road in the big leagues. I mean, look, you're on a video podcast, which you haven't been on before, so
No, but that was
that's
like,
Premier League for you, mate.
In my ears going,
Tony, what I liked about Friday night is like they were 1-0 ahead. We were busting our balls to sort of stay in the game. If Giles' shot had gone in, it could have been a different game. It's just the 3-0 doesn't really paint a kind of reflection had that chance have gone in, but probably was an overall reflection of the night.
Yeah. I mean, we can't really complain about the result, because they were a class above us, and as I said earlier, we weren't expected to get anything out of the game. But the thing was, they didn't have it easy. They had to compete against us, and again, I was quite pleased with Ross Barkley. I know he's not fully up to speed yet, but showing signs there in Chong was better as well, because he was tracking back more than he did against Brighton. And I don't think that we disgraced ourselves. We competed with them. We've earned the right to be at that level, and I think Chelsea themselves realised that as well. There was, there was no ill feeling. It wasn't a bad-tempered match or anything like that. The only thing that annoyed me was the way their players were throwing themselves about.
Yeah, that's also welcome to the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly. And
Unfortunately.
it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, we saw over the weekend it wasn't just Chelsea players that were doing that. Dan, we were going to come on to positives, and I think Tony's given us one big positive, the debut of Ross Barkley. I don't think anyone can expect him to have been fully up to speed and, sort of at his very best on Friday night, purely because of the amount of time he's had out so late to the club, only recently joined and training with his teammates and everything. But I thought he gave a pretty decent sort of 65, 70 minutes. I think I saw somewhere that he made 29 passes in the game, completed 24 of them, so that's a decent kind of percentage of it. And he generally, the longer that game went on, he looked more and more of a class act.
Yeah, definitely. And considering he's only been with the club, 2 weeks before that game, that's it's a sign of a good Premier League player, and he's somebody that I spoke last time when we just signed him. I think the last time I was recording with you guys, and I was excited then because we've all seen what Barkley could do when he was at Everton before he got his move to Chelsea, and we all know what a good player he can be. And for us coming into the Premier League, he's the type of player that we need in there with that experience and quality that he has. So I can't wait to see what he's like when he's fully fit, to be honest. I think he'll be a real asset for us and somebody we really need. And it's weird because the midfield I always felt was our strongest position, with Pelly, Clark, etc., Campbell, Berry. It's even stronger now. We've got a full international in there with experience who knows his stuff, knows what he's doing. And you could see during the game he was kind of the focal point of our sort of attacking play and retention and stuff. Whenever we got the ball, it was like, get it to Barkley, let him spray it. And it worked, and it will work as the season goes on. He'll be a real asset definitely.
And you've got to remember as well that they're still learning to play together. The team has still got to gel.
Yeah, well, it's 10 new signings.
So, exactly.
It's still a massive turnover in terms of players. I only expected 7 or 8, to be honest. So to get 10 and the ones we have got, I'm really pleased with.
Maybe a couple more coming away this week.
Yeah, we'll come on to potential transfers towards the end of this podcast. Another positive, Tony. Issa Kabore again down that right hand side, got into some great positions. Final ball was a little bit lacking, but hey, I mean, he's trying to pick out a needle in a haystack in the box at the moment, isn't he? But that will come. But the fact that he's getting into those positions and the fact that Chelsea didn't really get in down his side at all. All 3 goals came down the other side. Admittedly, that was the side that Sterling was on, the other side. But he just looks like he's improving all the time, and he's going to be a big asset.
He looks a real deal. He's you can see the potential in the guy. He's very quick, and his positioning is good as well. And he's always making himself available for the ball. He's another one that isn't fully up to speed yet. So, but when we are and we're clicking, it's the same on the left with Giles. Giles didn't have a particularly good game on Friday night, but that's going to come. It's going to, and with the 2 wing backs, it's important for them to form partnerships with their respective centre backs on that side. So Giles has still got to work that with Amari, and I thought Kabore and Burke looked better on the right side than it did on the left. But they said that there's great signs there, and Kabore, I think, is one that gives us a lot of hope.
James, you was adamant that in the preview podcast that if Reece Burke was truly fit, like they said that he was, that he would come in for Mads Andersen. You wasn't wrong, and we saw exactly why. He's just such a Rolls Royce of a footballer.
He is. He's got a great touch. He's pacey as well, and he's tough as nails. Actually, when he's great in the air as well. So I honestly didn't think he'd start though. I think he's coming back. He's unfortunately up to this point, and let's hope that's the end of it. He's made of glass, and he played about 7 games in a stretch, and then that was the end of it, and he was injured for a bit. So hopefully that's good news for him and good news for the team, because he showed Premier League quality when he was in the Championship, and if he gets a run of games in this league, then he's going to be an exciting prospect.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. It seems like he was only substituted because he was getting towards they call it the red zone, don't they? These days, in terms of their numbers and everything that they've got with their GPS systems.
He's never let us down when he played for us. Look, I mean, the playoff final when he came on, he was
my man of the match.
He was brilliant.
He was brilliant. Yeah, he was.
And what I like about Burke on Friday night is Rob Edwards alluded to it in one of the interviews he'd done after the game. I think it was the one with the club website, that he was the one that was designed to stop Enzo Fernandez. Even though Fernandez is a midfielder, he was the one who had to be brave and go in on him. And Fernandez was not a factor in the game whatsoever. No. For 100 and however many million he cost them, World Cup winner and everything else. You only really knew he was on the ball once, twice, maybe 3 times on the course of the night. It literally was Sterling or nothing else from the sort of forward.
I think
players.
if Sterling had got injured earlier in the game and had to go off, I think that game would have finished 0-0. It was Sterling was the difference.
Yeah, he absolutely was. I would agree with that. Obvious. Go on, James. No.
It wasn't me, mate.
Brilliant, excellent. I thought you was moving forward to chat. Like I said, teething problems, and we'll get everything sorted out. Dan, I don't really like to be too sort of focusing on negatives, particularly. I mean, maybe there'll be games where we do focus on negatives, but Brighton away and Chelsea away certainly aren't any of them. But a lot of goals are coming through the channels between our wing back and our wide centre back. That a concern, or is that purely because we've played on 2 wide open pitches, but when we get to Kenilworth Road, there won't be that space, so who cares?
Arguably, yeah, that could be the case. I think, on these big pitches, you've got all that room to manoeuvre and you can move around as much. I've nearly used the pitch as an example there, we haven't quite got it yet. But, and obviously Kenilworth Road is more compact, so you're going to find it a bit difficult. I think teams will still try and do it, but I think most of the play will be through the middle when we're playing at home. I think
that's something that Sheffield United showed on Sunday against Man City. That was what the analysis was, that they're happy to block the middle and send them down wide, because if crosses come in, they feel they can deal with it. You'd like to think Luton would be the same, because like we just said, Reece Burke's quite good in the air, Tom Lockyer all day long, and if they can do that, then that's probably a good tactic. I mean, what United did against Man City was pretty impressive. I know they lost. I mean, everybody loses against Man City, but to play that way for such a long period of time is sort of a tactic you can probably use against the bigger sides.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I really do think we're kind of second guessing what's going to happen until we see a home game, until we see a game against a team that we can compete with. At the moment, we've played 2 away games, arguably the hardest 2 apart from Manchester City in the entire league. So we kind of feel like it's impossible to judge and everything else. And in time will tell. Maybe this time next week we'll have a sort of clearer picture. Tony, Stamford Bridge, who was the one player in the Luton shirt that sort of stood out and impressed you if you were picking a Luton man of the match?
Kaminsky, again.
That's 2 in a row now, isn't it?
Made some brilliant saves, didn't he?
Tony just likes the colour of his shirt.
It's the pink, isn't it?
He looked
Brings out his eyes.
He's far. I've forgotten what I was going to say.
Kaminsky.
Yeah, Kaminsky. Yeah, thank you. Who? No, he was.
That's cruel.
He was.
No, he was on the bench, mate.
Yeah, that's true.
God, I'm trying to get myself together here.
Trying to make a decent point here.
Yeah.
Maybe I should turn my mic off.
Professional as always over in this corner.
I thought Kaminsky had a great game. He's far more in control, and when he's in possession of the ball, I don't worry as much as I did last season. His catching's good, and he's made stuff. He made a point blank save from Sterling as well, which you thought, and either side of him, it was a goal, but Sterling hit it with such force, and Kaminsky was down there and he held it, which was great. Whereas last season, you feel that would have gone anywhere and back out to a forward and back into the back of the net. So, no, I feel a lot more confident with him there. And he's been the outstanding player for me in both games. But there were others who had a good game. I mean, Barkley did, Chong did as well. Tom I think, is still struggling to get to grips with the league, but he will. You know, he'll come good. But he was up against some pace up there. The lad Jackson as well was so quick.
He was a pain in the backside, wasn't he?
You know, he did, and I thought Morris was putting himself about a bit again. He's shown that he'll be all right in this league. He's not overawed by it, and you know, perhaps didn't do the bullying job that West Ham did on their back 3 in their previous game. But no, I think that's all right. I think it's the way the spine of the team is developing. I think it gives us real hope that we're going to pick up stuff. So, you know, that's good. And Brown, when he came on as well, had a really good game again. I'm hoping he'll start against Gillingham because he needs a full 90 minutes, but he looks good because he puts himself about and he chases everything. He's got to be one of the hardest working players there. And you know,
you ask for one player, Tony gives you 6 players, but you know that's
son of me and James can't talk now.
no, that's absolutely fine. So Dan,
I'm here to bring quality to this conversation.
Well,
where is it?
It's hard for you guys, you know.
When you do, let me know, and I'll make sure I'm quiet for it.
I am available for transfer. Anybody?
Well, the window shuts this week, doesn't it?
So, of the 5 players that he's left behind, Dan, who stood out for you over the course of the night?
Well, to be honest, I thought Lockyer had a good game. I thought a lot of put a lot of blocks in, and maybe Tony is right. Maybe he's sort of struggling to keep up with it, but I thought he had a really good game.
You'll get there.
Well, I think the problem that Tom had the other night is he was booked after half an hour, wasn't he? So, you know, when you're up against that kind of pace, one slightly mistimed thing, as Trent Alexander-Arnold should have found out over the weekend, and you're off ski. Well, Tom Lockyer would have been off ski, so...
and you know it'll come with games as well. Like I think some people do forget that we're 2 games in. It's virtually a new team, and we're in a much higher division where the quality is so much bigger. With best of respects to the Championship, the gap is just humongous, and we have to improve and quickly. But we will, and you're seeing signs of it on Friday. You're seeing signs of things getting better, and I think with the Gillingham game, they'll switch it up a little bit and give people much needed minutes, and then that'll work in our favour for West Ham on Friday.
Yep.
And I genuinely think that as the season goes on, we'll start surprising people. I think it's really difficult to gauge early this time, unless you support everybody else with Luton are bottom. Everybody seems to think, little old Luton, bottom, lowest budget in the league, which we had in the Championship, and
I think
that works well for us.
One of the main things to come across from this with the two games is there's nothing to be scared of.
No, we've got nothing to lose really. We're still learning, still getting to grips, but we'll get there. Start looking at it again 10 to 12 games in, and we'll sort of have a fair idea where we're going to be at. But I still think we'll be all right.
Yeah, no one was ever going to judge our season on Brighton away or Chelsea away, or if they were, they were doing it wrong. Just before we finish, James, transfer window's got 4 more days left to run. Rumours abound that Isaac Hayden's going to come in midfield. There's talk that I've heard of Alan Campbell leaving. What do you make of what we need and any players that potentially could go?
Well, I'd be gutted if Campbell did leave, but at the same time, I could probably understand it because he's not seemed to be favoured by Edwards. He was almost never present, wasn't he? And he was actually my player of the season when Cal Naismith won it. I think it was yours as well, wasn't it? Yeah. And since Edwards come in, it doesn't really fancy him as much. I'd like to see him have a go because chasing down defenders and teams that want to play it around the back was sort of his forte, and him and Adebayo worked up really well. But I mean,
you'll know if the writing's on the wall with him or not if he's selected against Gillingham. If he's not involved against Gillingham, then between now and Friday he's gone. Yeah.
I mean, if the writing's on the wall for him, you can understand it because of the quality that's been brought in. I mean, Ross Barkley was in the team at the weekend. That is mental. Ross Barkley on a Luton team sheet. It is. I'm going to have to keep pinching yourself as the season goes on when you get good results or things like that. That is, you'd have never thought in a million years Ross Barkley would be pulling on a Luton shirt. And when I saw him do it, for the signing on thing, and then when you see him on the team sheet, you're like, is this real?
Well, he played a good ball on Friday to Giles, I think it was, and I thought, I remember thinking to myself, Christ, that was a good ball. Who played that? And then I was like, oh my, it's Ross Barkley. Actually, it was just normal for him, but the only thing he's got to change is 6. No, you do not wear a proper squad number. You're not a centre back, please. That needs changing.
Everything else though, I thought he played a really good game. You can just see it in the way that he sort of receives the ball and maybe the sort of extra yard of space, and when he gets up to speed, picking passes as well. It's going to be such an asset. So the midfield, I think they need to get as much quality in as they can there, because their teams at the top half of the table and maybe even the bottom, if you let them, will overrun you if you haven't got that quality. So that's what he's been brought in for. I think they'll obviously want to be trying to add a bit more firepower up top. Yeah, undoubtedly. Just because chances are going to be few and far between in the league. We all expected that. That's not anything new, is it?
We need a centre back as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I mean, there's been all sorts of rumours during the rumour mill that Japhet Tanganga from Tottenham has to choose between Inter Milan and Luton. I mean, that's a choice. Milan or Luton.
I thought Milan was out of the question now. I think somebody
he wants to play in the Champions League next season, so his best hope is Luton.
What's his name? Tunzeb.
Twanzebe.
Tunzebe.
What have we got in there? Just Coke, or have you got some alcohol in there?
Should be a Coke, yeah.
Fair enough.
I'm optimistic, you know me. I hope so, anyway.
You're not wrong there, that is for sure.
No.
Yeah, so I think, we're all expecting business to be done between now and, well, it'd probably be done pre-match Friday, wouldn't it? Because obviously everyone's involved in the game on Friday, and going to be much time to get anyone signed afterwards. So you would imagine Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the business is going to be done. So
You'd like to think so, wouldn't you? You don't want any last minute Colin, what's his face? What's his name?
Peter Odemwingie.
Colin Samuel.
That's it. I was going to call him.
Oh, Colin Samuel.
I was going to call him Colin
Peter
Salmon.
Thompson.
Then, but,
Maybe
Peter
we're going to
Thompson.
hide the signings from everyone, and then they just be in the team sheet on Friday. That's the ultimate way of not being not scouting your opposition.
They did it with Barkley, didn't they? I mean, nobody saw that coming. I was in the presser with him on
we
Thursday.
were all expecting a different player to be signed. We knew somebody's coming in, and when it was Barkley, it was like,
Yeah.
hell.
Well, somebody asked him, one of the national journalists asked him in the press conference on Thursday, how did you keep that under wraps? And he said, well, I don't know, but everybody was surprised, weren't they? I thought, well, that's what...
Because that wasn't even doing any rumours on Twitter or anything like that. And you always hear rumours about players signing before they've done it. Like, you know about it 3 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
But Barkley wasn't mentioned anywhere. It was amazing.
Unbelievable signing. But,
Well done to the club for doing that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise if they've got another gem up their sleeves, so to speak. Yeah, so we were expecting plenty of business. Keep your eye on the club website and everything else in all the usual places. Over the next 4 days, it should be entertaining both ins, and it does appear that there's going to be some outs as well. Okay, that's it for this episode of the podcast. Our thanks, as always, go to the Hightown Club, which is where we're recording this episode of the podcast from. We also want to thank Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our fantastic intro, which we all hope that you're really enjoying. And of course to Ed Smith Creative for all of the images that you're seeing that go along with this podcast. Please like and share the podcast. If you haven't already, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified of when all of our video podcasts drop. The further and wider we can sort of spread the podcast, the bigger and better we can make it for you guys. Also, keep your comments coming in too. We do read them, we do appreciate them. And if there's anything you'd like to see discussed on the podcast, then let us know and we'll try and incorporate it to future episodes. But for now, thanks for watching or listening, however you